So you're a professor in the Department of Counseling, Clinical, and School Psychology at the University of California, Santa Barbara. So someone right after my own kindred spirit. You hold a PhD in counseling psychology and is a fellow in the American Psychological Association. Dr. Israel teaches about helping skills, leadership, and community collaboration, among other things. She has facilitated educational programs and difficult dialogues about a range of topics, including abortion, law enforcement, religion, and sexual orientation. And then your book, which we're going to talk about here today, Beyond Your Bubble, How to Connect Across the Political Divide, Skills and Strategies for Conversations That Work. Fantastic. I am so thrilled you're here to join us. So maybe a good starting place, you didn't pick some soft topics to jump into, Tania. Like everything you jump into is tense situations. So tell me, I'm just curious, how did you get into this kind of work?
Sure. Well, we have to go back a couple of decades. Back in the 90s, I had started a group to bring together pro-choice and pro-life people to have dialogue with each other, because I had been engaged in this kind of work, and I was tired of being angry. I didn't feel like it was helpful, and I thought I'd like to try a different approach. So brought together folks, and it was an absolutely transformational experience for me. It did not change anything about how I felt about women's reproductive rights. It changed so much about how I felt about people who disagree with me on the topic. And what I realized then was that if I was evaluating other people's conclusions based on my framework of my experiences and values, that's the wrong metric. But once I was able to hear not just where they were, but how they got there, then it made so much more sense. And not only did it make sense, but I was really able to humanize them. And that was so important. So having had that experience, as other kinds of opportunities have come up, and I've been doing research on sexual orientation for over 20 years now, that's put me into a lot of conversations with people who might have different views. And the skills that I have learned from psychology, the research that I know from psychology, has really guided me in terms of being able to have effective and productive conversations. So when the 2016 election happened, and it was really clear that in this country we were having trouble connecting across the divide.
I noticed how you said it. I love how you see that past tense. And continues to be a trouble for us connecting across the divide. Yes, please.
Indeed. Indeed. And I think that 2016 was kind of a wake-up call to a lot of us, who recognize, oh, okay, this is a real problem. And I thought maybe I have something that can help. So that's how I got, I started by creating something that I call the flow chart that will resolve all political conflict in our country, because I'm optimistic like that. And spoiler alert, it has not actually yet resolved all political conflict in our country, but I think it's just a distribution issue, really. And so then I created a workshop to help people develop skills to have dialogue, and then that led me into writing the book.
So I really love what you said about what got you into this, and this realizing of humanizing the other side, right? Getting to understand their perspective, their story, how maybe they came to those beliefs. And while that's more easily done on a one-on-one basis, it's hard to scale. So that's why I kind of love what we're going to talk about today, is how do you kind of scale that? Because I could sit down and talk to everybody and spend 3 hours learning their life story. But a lot of people either don't want to do that or don't have the time to do that. So how do we kind of still get those nuggets and learn ways to humanize better and faster? So, all right, so maybe that's a good segue. I'm going to start by helping you set the stage here. What have you seen, even in the last year, or you can go back further if you like, what have you seen as kind of some of the problematic areas and tensions, the bubbles, when we talk about kind of political discord and political silos? Tell me what you see from your world.
So I always ask people, what is it that brings you to being interested in dialogue or to wanting to have dialogue? And so in the workshops, I would ask this, and when I talk to people about these things, and people say very often, there's someone in my life who I want to stay connected to, but we're having trouble because we have these political differences. That's one of the big reasons. There are also people who say, I simply cannot fathom how people can think or act or vote as they do. And so it's just like, I can't understand them. I want to understand. And of course, some people want to persuade others to see things as they do. People are looking for common ground or bridging the divide or finding ways of healing the divide. And so those are really the primary reasons that people say, this is what brings me to dialogue. And then I say, okay, well, what's getting in the way of that? And there are a lot of things that, because like, okay, great, we all have these motivations, so why aren't we actually doing it? And a number of the reasons that we're not doing it have to do with our perceptions of those people who we might be having dialogue with. And so the idea that those other people are uninformed, they are extreme, they are angry, and they are not open to dialogue. And so those are some of the things that I hear people say. And so the first thing that I try to start with is correcting some of our misperceptions of people across the divide, and there's decades of psychological research that talk about ways that we misperceive other people who disagree with us. And all of that plays out politically also. So we tend to think that people are more extreme than they are. We see this happening so much. In the media, the representations of people are representations of people who are more extreme. Apparently, that makes better news than interviewing people who say, yeah, I don't know, I can see it both ways. So it's what we're seeing.
I've never seen that news interview. I would love to see it. I've never seen it in the last 12 months. Yeah, I kind of agree with both sides. I've never heard
that's accurate. Most people are not at the extremes, but those are the people who are in the media, and it's also on social media. Those are the people who are engaging more in social media. So we see social media posts and we think, oh my gosh, everybody on the other side is storming the Capitol or, lighting the police station on fire in Portland, that this is what we think is happening. And that's not most people. So what I try to do is I try to speak to what can we do for most people. Most of us are not elected officials. Most of us are not people at the extreme. How can we then engage most people in these conversations?